when it was illegal to own gold in the good old US of A. Not that long ago, my friends, not that long ago. Let's take a brief walk through economic history just in the last century, shall we? Now, I think this gets overlooked a lot when people start saying the price of gold is, the price of gold that, because it was literally illegal. I mean, it was like drugs. It was prohibited. You could not own it. Thus, there was no price for it. So any price that happened after it was legalized is it's not something you can lay your hat on because say, oh, it did this, did that. Well, if it's held down by government mandate, when the mandates are released, that price in of itself isn't indicative of what a true economic value was, other than just it was being suppressed, and now it came to be. Basically, like you're holding down something like that. You're hold down, then you let go. It goes, rah! So, all right, let's dive into this. It's actually from the Huffington Post. I was ironically because I'm not a big fan of the Huffington Post. Not at all, but this article was pretty interesting, actually, and I thought it was interesting. All right, this is from Steve Mariotti, who's founder of the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship. So, who's an advocate for entrepreneurs worldwide. I was surprised to hear this guy on the Huffington Post, but let's read about it. 1933, FDR was elected president of the U.S. by promising to end the Great Depression, which had driven, okay, we already talked about that many times. He Actually, let me read this again. In 1933, FDR was elected president of the United States by promising to end the Great Depression, which had driven the national unemployment rate up to 25%. No, it had not. The Great Depression did not drive the unemployment rate before FDR was elected. It's 25% unemployment in 35 and 36 after FDR had been in office for a significant amount of time. Do not equate the Great Depression. FDR was 25% unemployment. FDR came around and all of a sudden the unemployment was not there. No. He enhanced it. He set it in stone. The opposite of that was in the early 20s when he had the same kind of thing. But what did our man Silent Kyle do? Nothing. He let the market take care of it. FDR did the exact opposite. There was not 25% unemployment until FDR did it. During his campaign, he promised to lower government spending and taxes and balance the budget. I wonder if I don't know that to be true. Once in office, he did the exact opposite. FDR's, I don't know. Hard to imagine FDR campaigning to lower taxes, lower the government spending, and balance the budget. I don't know if that's true. I'm not saying that this guy's wrong there, but given what he led this article with a 25% unemployment, I bet that's probably incorrect. Anyway, let's keep going down this, though. Let's see. FDR quickly realized, though, this after he got elected, that he could not print enough money to pay for his spending program, even by increasing taxes. The Federal Reserve Act of 1914 limited the amount of money that could be printed by the government. All Federal Reserve notes, paper money, had to be backed by 40% gold owned by the feds. In other words, every dollar printed needed 40 cents of gold in the bank. So let's read this. So FDR outlaws gold. One of his first acts as president, therefore, was to declare the fact that Americans were withdrawing their gold and currency from the beleaguered banking system, and he called it a national emergency. And thus he ordered all banks to close from March 6th to March 9th to prevent the export, hoarding, or earmarking of gold and silver currency or bullion or currency. Because he believed this action was not sufficient to prevent runs on banks and the resulting drain of gold from the system, on April 5th, 1933, 1 month after taking office, he used the powers granted to the president by the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917. Woodrow Wilson, one of the worst presidents of all time, to make gold ownership illegal. He just, executive order, outlawed gold. He issued Executive Order 6102, which made gold ownership, both in coins and bars, illegal for all Americans and punishable by up to 10 years in prison. Anyone caught with gold would also have to pay a fine of twice the amount of gold that was not turned over to the Federal Reserve. Can you freaking believe that? So here's, gonna make it bigger. Man, doesn't make it bigger. That's too bad. Anyway, so this is the under the executive order of the president, honored before May 1st, 1993, all gold coin, gold bullion, and gold certificates now owned by them to a Federal Reserve Bank branch or agency. Okay, I can't see what that says. Let's go back. Can you freaking believe that it's nuts. Now they're saying, hey, we're going to put you in prison for 10 years if you own gold. It's just crazy. Here's the New York Times. Roosevelt orders 4-day bank holiday, puts embargo on gold, calls Congress. Americans were required to hand gold into the government. All Americans were required to turn in their gold on or before May 1st, 1933, in return for $20 of paper money. So they get $20 an ounce, $20.67 precisely an ounce. Americans who did not turn in their gold were subject to arrest on criminal charges and faced 10 years in federal prison. An exception was made for dentists who could own up to 100 ounces to make false teeth. Proclamation 6102 also prohibited the use of gold in contracts, and this was held by the Supreme Court in March 1935, the Gold Clause cases. Millions of Americans waited in long lines to hand in their gold. Look at that. Because many photos from this era were often cited examples of people getting their money out of the banks when in fact they were simply turning in their gold with the FDR's new laws. With gold and paper money now separated, FDR was able to increase the federal deficit by issuing bonds in exchange for paper money. He used the paper money raised through government bond issues to pay for many programs he initiated as part of the New Deal, which then forced 25% unemployment. Sadly, FDR's New Deal did not end the Great Depression. Instead, the 1937 stock market collapsed 90%, and then in the 1970s, the U.S. government removed the restrictions on owning gold. All right, we talked about Nixon ending the gold standard, but let's see what else we got here. All right, so, but the problem with what FDR did, and here's right there is pretty interesting, the decline of the purchasing power. So what he did is he said, you got to turn your gold in for $20 an ounce, and then turn around right around within like the next year, and he says, we're going to sell it for $35 an ounce. So literally the gold, well, actually, I'll tell you, let me read this article to you, because from Silver Monthly, talking about silver bullion. Some of these, they're basically, it's kind of funny because silver, they're arguing that it could happen again. So it's just that kind of funny. So the great confiscations. Let me read this. This is interesting right here. Let's see. Shortly, we talked about the $20 per ounce is what right here. All right, shortly after taking office, FDR signed an executive order prohibiting the hoarding of gold. Under this executive order, Americans were prohibited from owning more than $100 worth of gold coins, and all hoarders, people who own more than $100, were forced by law to sell their gold to the government at the price of $20.67 an ounce. Then, once the government had all the gold, FDR revalued the dollar relative to gold so that gold was now worth $35 an ounce. So he's mandating you trade it in at $20 an ounce by threat of jail for 10 years, then turn around once the government had all the gold, and he's going to reprice it at $35 an ounce. Thus, the government had thereby robbed millions of American citizens at a rate of $14.33 per ounce of confiscated gold, which is why most historians agree that the gold confiscation of 1933 is the single most draconian economic act in the history of the United States. That's crazy, man. Let's keep going down here. So, finally, the dollar was revalued. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Following the end of the Second World War, the U.S. stood alone as the economic superpower, virtually untouched by the Axis or Allies. While most of Europe lay in ruins, it all made Roosevelt's coercive and unconstitutional acts look ingenious. But scholars from the left and right continue to debate whether it truly rise or whether the New Deal was bailed out by global externalities, which it was for sure. Let's see. Under legally dubious means, FDR and Congress passed a law outlawing. Oh, it wasn't passed a law. It was an executive order. I mean, that's what it was. Gold ownership remained illegal in the U.S. until 1954, and that's when you were able to own a rare coin, which was basically nothing. In 1969, the federal government further clarified the 1954 ruling and officially exempted rare coins from any future government confiscations, but still reserved the right for government to seize a citizen's gold in the future. These basic principles governing the administration of the gold acts and orders are that gold as a store of value can be only held by the government, and that private citizens and entities in the U.S. can acquire gold only for the legitimate and customary industrial, professional, and artistic purposes. 2 years later, Nixon closed the gold window and took the U.S. off the gold standard for all, making a true fiat currency with no asset or intrinsic backing. Let's see. Then in 1974, they talk about that. I guess. So in 1974, Ford got rid of and made it legal again to hold gold. But I guess they don't talk about it. I thought they did. Anyway, so that's it. So basically, people say all the day, we can say, hey, the gold did this or gold. We only have a 40-year track record of pricing of gold. a 45-year track record. So gold went from basically boink to boink because of the suppression was eliminated. So we just had this bubbling, and then it hasn't done anything since 1980. I mean, it's gone from what 800 an ounce to 1,300 an ounce now. So you can't look at gold as a hedge against inflation. You just can't, because we don't have proof of that historically. There is no historical proof of that for this year and for this the last 150 years, 100 years, about 100 years exactly. We don't have proof of that. Now, does that mean you should not own gold? No, you absolutely, if anything, you should own gold because of this. Now, I'll be damned if I freaking ever go to, by threat of law, if I ever turn to my gold. No, it's not happening. I'll tell you, you know who I am. You easily find where I live. And I'm telling you right now, I will never turn to my gold, and I'll never turn to my firearms either. It just will never happen, because I know what happens here. We know what happens when the government does these kind of mandates. They're not doing it for the benefit of you. They're doing it for the benefit of them, for the power. So I'll never turn in. And this might be a reason why you want to buy gold right now, simply because we see, look, I'm not one of these Ron Paul guys. I like Ron Paul, but generally speaking, he's a little bit way out there for me in terms of some of his fringe stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, we've seen historically speaking the government engaging in dastardly things, in the confiscation of gold, the internment camps of Japanese. I mean, just never mind the freaking what they did to blacks. I mean, literally, we have a history of the government not engaging for the benefit of its citizens, but rather for the benefit of itself. Thus, and it was only 100 years so, and we can say FDR, which I would absolutely. I mean, he should be held in not high esteem for these actions, without question. But he won't be, because he came at it from the left, which is the increasing power of the government. But at the same time, Nixon was just as bad. Now he's held in an account because he came from the right, but Nixon was a Keynesian. He wasn't a freaking market economist, certainly not a capitalist. So own gold. Own gold. How much should you have? 5% of your liquid net worth, in my opinion. It should not be in gold mining stocks, be in actual gold. Gold has proven itself historically literally, gold has been proven year over year, decade over decade, century over century, to be a store of value to some degree, to be able to buy something with the currency, the bullion that a gold coin provides. It is proven. I mean, look, you can look historically just at the Bible. One of the three kings, one that was gold for Jesus. So if it's good enough for the Bible, it's good enough for me. And so I would highly suggest you go and try to buy some gold bullion, maybe silver too, just to get some portion of it stored. And again, I'm not here to scare you that the government's going to ban it. I'm not. I don't think it's happening anytime soon. But I am here to say history tells us there is the ability for them to do it, and there's no saying that it can't happen again. All right, but without saying, but don't sit there and say I'm going to buy gold as a hedge against inflation, because history shows that we have no history of that. So going back to 1974, that's it. That's the start of history. So the hedge against inflation was in 1974, and we just don't have enough to validate that. We just don't see it. So, I hope you find it interesting. I like this stuff. So, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to support me, I do have a Subscribe Star channel or support thing. $10 a month, Subscribe Star. I put some stuff on there for my my Patreons, if you shall. Just go to subscribestar.com, Josh Scanlon, and you can find that information. All right, we'll see you next time.